Hello, everybody. Mes Poncenin here. It is Tuesday, the 10th of November. Most of you know I am finishing my book. Yes, and I actually done quite a lot. I've got a few chapters to go, but a massive chunk have been written so far. And I was about to finish this chapter, and I thought I actually got quite inspired to read this to you guys because I think at the moment, we are practicing alone, most of us at least. Most places gone back to lockdown. We are in lockdown in England. And so we spend a lot of time practicing capoeira, not playing capoeira with someone else. And I think this chapter could be quite interesting to give you some inspiration this week for you to think about this subject. But I want to explain that I'm going to read the book. It's very raw at the moment. I have written in English, and I have a group of people that will help me, obviously correct the English and make it all perfect and beautiful for when it comes out. I'm saying this because I might have to go back a few times and say, oh, sorry, that's not what I meant. I just don't have an amazing... I wanted this to be read by someone like Stephen Fry or someone like that. But at the moment, you have to put up with me and my accent. So I just want to apologize in advance if I get a little started or I have to go back and explain what I meant. So perhaps partially reading and partially explaining the book, okay? I will try my best to keep the flow. So here we go. Chapter 10, The Way of the Feet. In 2004, part of my studies was directed to analyze the way in which the masters of capoeira moved, more specifically, the feet. I became interested in footwork for obvious reasons: strategy, patterns, style, looking at the qualities that I wanted to enhance in my own style. In capoeira, we don't roll on the floor or touch any part of our body on the floor apart from our feet, hand, and head. And in some styles of capoeira, you don't even touch your head on the floor. It may be hard to believe, but in some styles, there's no such a thing as a headstand. In my school, headstands was always part of our training. I was balancing on my head from the very beginning. But there you go. Feet is part of our main stance. And of course, it is in our feet that we ginga. We are massaging the sole of our feet every time we step into a ginga. And if you are a sympathizer with the idea of reflexology, then you are in for a treat. Here are just some of the areas that may be activated in your foot as you ginga. Your head/brain, teeth, nose, cervical spine, thyroid, esophagus, solar plexus, lungs, diaphragm, hip joint, and lower back. The thought of this constant self-massage is interesting, but for me, the directions and how the masters use the feet is where my studies focus the most. I wanted to investigate if there was a relationship between the personality traits and the movements that were being delivered in the roda. I began to think that if I could study the feet position on the players, I would see some patterns. And even beyond this point, I realized that these patterns could tell me something about the master's way or the master's personality. The first relations found were about style. Where the toes pointed, so did most of the game. In other words, if the players spent most of the game with the feet pointing forward, then it was likely that this game was a very one-dimensional game. And in some more extreme cases, having a one-dimensional game meant that the jogo turned to what we call boca de espera, which means mouth that waits. This is a very dangerous style. This is a very dangerous style, not one that I found most satisfying to play, but certainly a style that must be learned if you don't want to end up looking foolish. Boca de espera, it is basically when a player waits for you to take the initiative. They use movements and mannerisms that may look like they're doing something or about to do something, when in fact they are patiently waiting for you to take the bait. Some of the most dangerous players use this technique. It is a very strong technique, but also can lead to a more combative style with no flourishes or fluidity. It is also the game of waiting. Once you are aware that this static is up against you, you must play the same game. Or in a more dramatic turn, as your confidence and maturity grows, you can also undercut this style by doing the very opposite. But this requires immense skill and practice. For a beginner, the key is to recognize what the other player is trying to do and not move without a plan. Here's where, again, the ginga becomes your great ally. It is in the ginga that all the fake or feint find its strength. In contrast, if the player's toes and therefore their feet pointed sideways in the manner of ginga and other basic movements, it was very clear that the game would be very side to side. This is a generalization, but it is also a great way to start to think and understand the complexity and the protagonist tool of your feet. If you want to romanticize the parallels with reflexology, I would say that reflexology is your body mapped out on your feet. In capoeira, your game is also mapped out on your feet. Invisible lines can be seen by the master's eye, the floor becoming canvas, and your feet brushes, painting with all kinds of strokes and splashes. It is on your feet that you look for balance. From your feet you attack, and if misplaced, you fall. Back in the 80s, we had very little print information on capoeira, but almost any book on practical side of the movements would start its first chapter by showing the positions of the feet. Hands and feet are extremities, and as such, they highlight so much of our subconscious mind. If not practiced, it is harder to be aware of the involuntary behavior of these extremities. And in the case of your foot, if not understood, you become more exposed for a rasteira. We think and feel as if we are owning our head, but it's the increasing knowledge that we are inside our arms, legs, feet, and so on that will maximize your abilities to navigate with expertise, not only by yourself, but also in relation to the other player. Mestres have developed many techniques to increase this awareness, due to the simple fact that if you don't practice, you learn the hard way. A rasteira marking as a practice can increase the proprioception of your feet. A kicking bag can serve the same purpose. The more we can increase the language of the feet, more fluently we will speak. One of my favorite examples of this practice, and one that deals directly with the fact that we don't pay attention to the feet, is the cabeçada rasteira drill. This is where one person will assume a base position in parallel, and the other will apply a rasteira. But the rasteira is serving only as a bait for a cabeçada and vice versa. You can apply a feint of a cabeçada and then pull the feet with the rasteira. What usually happens is that as you rasteira your colleague, he or she will focus on the rasteira and therefore open the guard for cabeçada. When you cabeçada, the attention is no longer on the feet, so it can become a target for rasteira. I'm just going to pause there to explain this, because there are some mistakes here in reading. So I'm basically saying that there is a fantastic practice, which is you mark a rasteira, and usually what happens in a roda, when you mark a rasteira, but your intention is not to pull the rasteira, is to give a cabeçada. But you mark a rasteira because the person focus on the rasteira. So then you apply the cabeçada, and it just shows, what is this practice doing? It shows how extremities can confuse you, because your mind goes to your feet and you forget your guard upright. And then obviously the practice so we can train. So when someone gives a rasteira that is only a marking, you can guard the upper body. Throughout this book, words like conscious and awareness are in abundance. And that is because this theme is very related to the process of learning. In this chapter, I am once again bringing your focus to one part of your practice, zooming in and amplifying, looking at one part under the microscope, only to reveal that so many parts are connected and fundamentally dependent on each other. Here I present an exercise for feet awareness. You go to a negativa and you simply rolê out of the negativa. Then you repeat the process, but now you pay attention on one of your foot. Pay attention to the foot that is in front of you, not the foot that you are sitting on, but the leg that is straight in front of you. Then you repeat the process one more time, but you're now driving the rolê, you're driving the turn of the rolê with the foot of the straight leg. In this part, you will see how zooming in your foot and driving the movement from your foot completely change the deliverance of the rolê. By starting to move on one foot and turning the foot first, you create an involuntary chain of behavior. Now, we are going deeper into the outcomes of this study. If we praise the malandro or the malandra or the malandragem qualities in the game, we must look for ways that we can train this behavior in the body. The malandro behavior is very much linked with this idea of involuntary movement. This kind of practice and reflection is also a way to bring the historical content to the present. Here's where my theory called non-linear time that governs capoeira and how it becomes more relevant. Tracing all these lines of footwork of the past masters, you are making very much alive in the present. This is what I mean by non-linear time. Exercise 2. The brush. As a passionate practitioner of calligraphy, I have learned many lessons that inspires me in capoeira. It is maybe as a default that I'm always searching for patterns in other art forms that will enhance my capoeira practice. But in doing so, I am also reminded and I feel humble with the it also has a humbling effect in realizing how little I know and how at the stroke of a brush, a new world of possibilities open right in front of my eyes. It always started many years ago, but my passion for handwriting more specifically took an extra turn when I obsessively started to make notes about my classes and my personal practice. It is a very powerful instrument of reflection, and among the lessons that I have learned, one seems to be very relevant to this chapter. The tool influences the style. At first, it is obvious that the writing tool is the key to the shape of the letters. A pointed pen gives one look, a broad edge pen will give another look. But if you dig deeper, you see how much this is relevant to our art. If you practice and play capoeira with shoes, then you must consider that your shoes is the tool between your feet and the floor. Also, if barefooted, this also applies, as the skin of your feet is directly touching the surface. How does the tool make you feel? Are you in a slippery surface or perhaps a sticky one, where the spinning movements may be a dangerous hazard to your knees? These are just some of the questions that we can ask, but we can also ask deeper questions of style. When I took a closer look at the footwork of two of my heroes, Mestre João Grande and Mestre João Pequeno, I was also surprised to see how much I was not aware of this tool and how elegant, precise, and alive they move. They move their feet in a very particular way. I noticed that a pattern of lifting the foot in each ginga stroke by Mestre João Grande and a brush quality by Mestre João Pequeno. In this sense, the very opposite of each other. I have been lucky enough to be in classes with these great masters. And in the case of Mestre João Grande, I have had many classes. The feet position is very precise, to the minimal details. In one class, he made me step with such precision and time my hands with my foot that I felt like I was starting capoeira all over again. The relationship between feet, hand, and character is incredible. I feel that so much is added to the game when you do these two positions. Ground the upper body and lift your foot. But also a feeling of how you can flow and experience this brush quality by lifting your body and using your feet as brushes. So just going to pause the reading there. This is where I give two examples, and in the book there will be a drawing and I explain how I can use these two different mapping outs that I studied from the masters. I also have a part here which I love it, which I developed. I call it Mojubá Capoeira Calligraphy Studies. But all that means is that I'm studying the feet work, and I give some exercise that very much look like calligraphy practice, but it's all related to your feet. So much depends on the dexterity of the feet. So many songs were written about this and the poetic use of the capoeirista's feet. We dance, jump, sweep, stomp, attack and defend with our feet. We can empower, injure or teach. And then I go on to quote a poem from Jorge Amado that is beautiful about capoeirista's feet. So this is a taste, guys, of the chapter 10 of the book. So far, I've got 10 chapters. This is where I've stopped so far. And I have obviously written the other chapters. I'm going to just read to you the previous chapters, the heading of the previous chapters, just to tease you a little bit more. So chapter 1 is about flow. Chapter 2, visualization is the path of the warrior. 3, always remember what made you smile as a child. Chapter 4, inspiration comes from doing, not from having. Chapter 5, talent is a myth. Chapter 6, your weakest point can become your strongest. Chapter 7, flexibility comes first from the mind. Chapter 8, F plus I plus E equals T. I'm not going to explain, obviously, I'm going to leave you curious there. Chapter 9, in and out. Chapter 10, the way of the feet. And then obviously I have another, it goes up to 24. So I'm still deciding how many chapters I will keep for this book, or if this is a case of having maybe 2 books, I don't know. Guys, what I will ask you, if you enjoyed this, I'm happy to hear your comments, please. As I've explained, I justified that this is a very raw reading, full of mistakes and English mistakes there. I took the task in writing in English for the first time in my life. And I have some issues, obviously, with my grammar. Now, what I will ask you to support, if you'd like to support this book, then please share, please tell everybody about, write some nice comments, some lovely comments. And a way to support is also coming to the classes. We discuss these things in my classes. And you can send me an email if you'd like more information about my classes, more information about the book, how you could perhaps participate and help out. But most importantly, if this inspires you to practice, I'll be very happy indeed. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful week. Ciao, ciao.